Hey there, and welcome to the only show on the internet where Edgar Allan Poe takes over the body of a semi bright guy living in Issaquah, Washington, named James Valvis, and rants out at people opinions that are a lot smarter than Mr. Valvis would be capable of all by himself. In this case, I want to talk about diversity. Now, diversity is one of those tricky keywords that the left likes to throw out and proclaim a universal good thing. It's universally good to have diversity. Diversity, I was just at my daughter's freshman orientation for college, and they talked about how diverse their canvas is and how great it is they have diversity. There's all these different kinds of people there. But this is just nonsense. There is nothing necessarily good or bad about diversity. It depends on the kind of diversity you're talking about. It's like change in that way. When Obama said everything's hope and change. Change is going to happen. Change. Well, change can be good or it can be bad. If you meet the woman of your dreams, that's good change a lot of the times. Or, if you find out you have cancer, that's change also, but it's not necessarily change that you're looking forward to. So, the same with diversity. Diversity is one of those things where it depends on the kind of diversity you're talking about. Now, if you want to talk about the kind of diversity that allows the best people to perform in any particular function, then it's a good thing. If you're going to talk about diversity that just allows people in because of certain immutable characteristics, that is not necessarily a good thing. I'll give you an example. Let's say we have a guy, Spaceman Jim, and he's out there in space and he's doing space things. And all of a sudden, Spaceman Jim gets in trouble. And the people on Earth, the people at NASA, need to bring Spaceman Jim back from space. But all Spaceman Jim has is his broken spaceship and like 3 rolls of duct tape and a kazoo. And he has to figure out a way to get home with that. It's like Apollo 13 or something. Now, if diversity means that, you're going to let in the best people to get Spaceman Jim home. If you're going to say, oh, we know this black guy, for instance, and he's brilliant, and he's going to greatly increase our chances of getting Spaceman Jim home alive, then everybody, especially Spaceman Jim, wants that black guy to be on the team. That kind of diversity will lift everybody and help everybody. But if you're talking about another kind of diversity, where we're just meeting a quota, where you take a look and you say, well, we have 9 white guys and 1 white woman, and we don't have any black people. And we can only have 10 people on the team to bring Spaceman Jim home. But we're going to take away one of these really smart white guys and put a black guy in there who's not as qualified. Now, all of a sudden, Spaceman Jim's got a problem. Because Spaceman Jim's chances of surviving just went down considerably because somebody felt the need to have diversity. That kind of diversity isn't helpful to anyone. Diversity in and of itself is not a net good. A lot of times you say, well, we want to have, if we have this people, on this campus, we'll have a greater campus. Well, not necessarily. Some of the greatest civilizations of all time were not diverse at all. I mean, you think of England during the Victorian Age. In England, there was nothing in England except Englishmen. Basically, you would have some foreigners passing through, but you would, for the most part, the England England itself, Great Britain itself, was made up of Englishmen. And so when you look at, Shakespeare, Milton, and all the genius that came out of England, it wasn't a diverse culture. The greatness of that culture was insanely white and monolithic in its nature and its ethnicity. And it wasn't even there weren't even women working in the fields in literature, and it was still a time of great accomplishment. Now, could it have been a time of greater accomplishment had, well, I don't think that, other races were prominent enough to be successful in England at the time, but that women would have greater opportunities, probably yes. And of course, we should strive to have that kind of excellence rise to the top. We should want that. We should want merit to come to the fore, for the cream to rise, regardless of who that comes from. But the idea that we need to have certain amounts of people, a certain little bit of this kind of people, a little bit of that kind of people, and that's going to make the stew okay, that's going to make it better. It's like saying, putting hot sauce in your Cheerios is going to make your Cheerios better. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Sometimes you need your Cheerios to just be Cheerios. And there's even some degree where such diversity, even if you're dealing with an equal level of merit, in other words, there's not a much greater level of merit, can cause problems. Men and women working together causes problems. It just does. It always will. Men and women have a sexual issues between them. That's why you're seeing this whole Me Too movement. Women have been saying feminists have been saying for 40 years at least, ever since the 60s, 50 years, that women could go into the workplace and everything would be as smooth as cream cheese. And now we're finding out that really has never been true. And it never will be true. Now, you may argue that even though there are problems with it, it's still preferable. I personally think that's accurate. But that doesn't mean that there aren't problems with this so-called diversity. It doesn't mean that in this diversity, it doesn't actually cause greater problems than it may even create advantages in some cases. There may be times when diversity is the very least thing you want in a particular situation. Maybe, I went to an all-boys school for my first 2 years of high school, St. Peter's Prep in Jersey City. And then I went to a co-ed school, my second 2 years of high school. And I can tell you without any hesitation at all that the all-boys school was a better atmosphere for learning. That the lack of diversity was better for that particular condition, especially at that particular time. And I don't mean the era, but I mean the time of life between 14 and 18 years old. So diversity itself is not necessarily a net good. It may be a net bad, or it may be a net even. Certainly we don't want to be prejudiced. We don't want to eliminate or exclude people because of their, because of their immutable characteristics. A person can't help if they're born black. They can't help if they're born Hispanic. They can't help if they're born tall. They can't help if they're born female. But if being born female is causes a problem for you to perform your job, as say a fireman may be, if you let me put it this way: if you're in your house and you've been knocked out cold by a beam in a fire, and you're laying there and there's smoke all around you, and your wife and daughter or your husband and children are waiting outside and praying that you get out alive, do you want a 220-pound buff man able to move through doors and with an axe with ease coming for you? Or do you want a 100-pound female who couldn't lift the cat out of the fire coming for you? Let's be honest about this. When it comes down to certain things, there are certain times when things about us are just immutable. And it doesn't matter how much you want to feel good by saying, "Oh, I'm all for women empowerment," or "I'm all for, ending, making everything even." Sometimes even isn't good. Sometimes even costs somebody their lives. When you think, "Oh, well, the hell with you, Spaceman Jim." But what if you're thinking about a 6-year-old little girl who's in that fire? Are you still so sure that diversity needs to be the top criteria in which you look at these things? We always talk about compassion, and the left looks at compassion in a very simplistic way. They never look at the results of their compassion, their compassionate measures. They say to themselves, "Oh, women should be able to live their dream and go do whatever they want." Okay, but what about the dreams of that 6-year-old girl who dies in the fire? What then? What about that? What about the cost of that diversity? These are complicated problems. These are not easy problems to deal with. Obviously, again, you don't want to exclude people. You don't want to say to somebody, "Oh, little girl who wants to be a fireman, you can't be a fireman because you end up being 120 pounds soaking wet." But, I wanted to be a baseball player, but I wasn't any good at it. I just wasn't. So I didn't get to live that dream because I couldn't play second base for the Mets. I just didn't have that skill. And so sometimes you got to find new dreams because the dreams that you have just don't match up with your abilities. And it's not wrong to say that. It's not wrong to face that, because Spaceman Jim is up there and that little girl is in that house. And those people matter. And when you make rules and you make laws based on feeling good, based on whatever makes you feel most ennobled, there's consequences to that. And those consequences are sometimes horrendous. Anyway, I hope you like this talk. And please like, comment, subscribe, and share this so that other people can gain from Edgar's wisdom. And in the end, thank you for listening, and God bless you.